Let me turn to China right now, which is now, wow, the second largest economy. At what point will China decide to abandon its developing nation status and, well, stop borrowing from the World Bank?
Excited to have you once more, amazing viewer at Comfort for Life. Thank you so much for your continued support. This compilation carries a lot of meaning. Is China a developed or a developing country? Before then, I've been looking at this label, China is living in the future. China is living in 2050, 2070 for some. And this label has been given by foreigners, experts, people who visited China with preconceived ideas of this country being backward and then noticed the tremendous development that has happened in the country. But before we dive into that, if there's a creator who has traveled to China and understood the depth of living in the future, I want you to check this clip.
So I'm back from China, and I have been talking to a lot of people who want to know what it was like being in China. And I would normally say the rumors are true, they are living in the future. But then I started thinking about it. Actually, they're not living in the future. We have all of the same technological advances that they have. The difference between China and the West is distribution. In the West, all the new fun stuff is premium, right? You have to pay extra for that. So that means only wealthy people or people with disposable income get it. In China, a few of these technologies, not all of them, but just a few of them are deemed too important to capitalize. So they distribute that. That gets put out to everybody. So in aggregate, what that does is that makes everybody feel like in China, they are advancing beyond us in the West because it is a more even, and it really is just a handful of technologies. That's good management.
Although there are Chinese who have also adopted the term China is living in the future, welcome to the future, whenever they want to do their videos about China, there are other creators, other Chinese who aren't comfortable with this term. China is living in the future. It's really making them uncomfortable when they look at the overall situation of the country. Check this.
I'm honestly tired of hearing people say China is already living in 2050 while the rest of the world are in 2025.
Don't be misled by videos on TikTok that China is living in the future.
Yes, it's the Chinese. I'm proud of the huge transformation over the last 40 years. Our modern tech like EV, the bullet trains, the skyscrapers, developed cities like Shanghai and Beijing are truly leading the world. But that's not the full picture of China. I live in Shanghai, but I've also traveled to many rural areas and the tier 3, tier 4 cities in China. I also have many friends from those areas. Life there is way harder, with an average income of just $300 to $400 a month. The hospitals and schools are not as good, and the younger generation often leave for bigger cities in search for better opportunities. There is still the reality for much of China's 1.4 billion people. So China has made incredible progress, and I'm proud of that. But I'm not blind to the challenges and the gaps that still exist. I think both sides of the story need to be told. I'm Yang, a Chinese founder and CEO. Follow me if you want to hear more real insights about how China really works.
Both creators shared the same idea, and I just want to communicate something. Can you see how collective this society is? Just imagine you as a person living in Beijing, China, and experiencing all these beautiful technologies and the development, the advancement of the country, and yet you're looking at those who can't afford life and say, we cannot take this label. We want to still be a developing country until I see everyone enjoying what I'm enjoying. Anyway, I don't know what you think about this.
I'm tired of hearing people say China is living in the future. Yes, China has robots serving noodles. Yes, it has high-speed trains, AI cities, and gleaming skyscrapers. But that's not the whole story. Lately, I have been traveling through Western China, across empty deserts and quiet towns. In this part of the country, life is slower, harder, more grounded. Some areas still rely on basic farming. Some don't have good hospitals or schools, and some young people leave because the best jobs are somewhere else. But Here is the point. This is also China. And if you only look at the glossy surface, you will never understand how this country really works. I love my country, but let me be clear. China is not a tech showroom. It's not a TikTok fantasy. As I wrote in my book, Unpacking China, most books and videos about this country fall into two extremes. On one side, polished, feel-good portrays that read like official brochures. On the other, harsh critics, often driven by frustration, fear, or ideology. But the truth, China is complex, uneven, still developing, trying to lift all boats, but still fighting strong currents. I'm Yuan, a Chinese scholar unpacking how this country really works, one real video at a time.
We common people don't focus too much on top buildings of the country, but on everyday life, salary, food, medical care, and education. Job is the most important one and goes first.
While America still debates whether California should even build a high-speed rail, China already built a 50,000-kilometer network. And also, did you know that 90% of China's high-speed rail are actually losing money? Only 6 lines are profitable. So why keep building rail lines that lose billions? Because high-speed rail isn't just about profit, it's about a bigger national strategy. As of 2025, China's high-speed rail network stretches over 50,000 kilometers, yet only 6 lines in the east, like Beijing to Shanghai, actually make money. Some calculate that at 6 trillion yuan, around 4,285 yuan per person. But if you just look at the books, you miss the bigger picture. Rail lines may lose money for companies, but they create wealth for the nation. So why the losses? 2 main reasons. First, cost versus ticket price. Building a high-speed rail costs about 1.2 to 1.5 billion yuan per kilometer, and in difficult terrain like Tibet or Yunnan province, over 3 billion yuan. However, ticket prices are super cheap, about 0.5 yuan per kilometer. Government subsidizes fares so everyone can afford. For example, Beijing to Shanghai cost 220.9 billion yuan. And current fears, it would take 20 years to break even. But meanwhile, logistics efficiency in the region rose 40%, boosting GDP by 2.3%. While second, short-term losses versus long-term values. Central and Western lines have lower passenger flow, only a third of the East, but they transform local economies. For example, the Xi'an to Chengdu line cuts kiwi fruit delivery to 3 hours. And rail construction drives upgrades in 120 industries. Tibet's Lingzhi will see an 11-hour death road replaced by the Sichuan to Tibet Railway, cutting patient transport to 3 hours, and local products reach nationwide markets in 48 hours. Shanghai to Tibet rail line was once criticized as money-losing, but now Tibet leads China's GDP growth for 10 years, and transport efficiency is 5 times higher. China's rail strategy has 3 layers. First is build first, perfect later. Lines today may be tomorrow's economic corridors. And second, balance the country. Profits from eastern lines subsidize western ones. And third, technology for the future. CR 450 trains reach 450 kilometers per hour. 5G plus Beidou improved efficiency 40%. And exports are expected to bring over 100 billion yuan by 2030. High-speed rail lines has reshaped the lives of 1.4 billion people. While some debate in the US, China's 50,000-kilometer network shows that some books take 30 years to balance, and some values can be measured in money. I'm Kelly Tom. Talk to you later.
China is great, but like any country, it has its own challenges. Some people choose to leave for various reasons. First, China's large population leads to intense competition, especially in education and careers. Many high school students study around 15 hours a day, striving to stand out in the Gaokao, National College Entrance Exam, which is often described as thousands of soldiers and horses trying to cross a single log bridge. Due to this extreme pressure, some parents choose to send their kids abroad to avoid such a fiercely competitive system. After graduation, the pressure doesn't stop. Long working hours are common. Not everyone gets weekends off. And some big tech companies still promote the 996 work schedule. A popular term these days, 内卷, captures the feeling of having to constantly strive just to stay in place. It reflects the reality many young people experience. Another reason is that some have an idealized view of life abroad, often influenced by exaggerated stories. For example, you might hear myths like, you can earn enough washing dishes in the US to buy a villa, which is far from reality. That said, not everyone who lives is escaping stress or chasing a dream. Some go simply to experience different cultures, a slower pace of life, or new opportunities. Living doesn't mean they don't love China, sometimes it's just about trying something new.
What do regular people care about most in daily life? Mainly food, clothing, housing, and getting around. So today, let's talk about transportation. From young Sheldon, I learned that in the West, especially in the US, most families own at least 1 or 2 cars. So cars play a huge role beyond public transport. But what about those who don't have a car or find public transport inconvenient or just don't like using it? In China, we have a great solution. Electric scooters and bikes. They come in all shapes and sizes with different functions, and best of all, they're affordable. They become the main way people get around. Even family with cars often own e-scooters too. Why? First, they're super convenient. If you're going somewhere 8 kilometers away with hard parking, would you take a car or two-wheeler? Second, they are very budget-friendly. Third, they don't need much maintenance and parts are cheap. Like the two-wheel models selling in this shop, the average price is around $300 to $400 with free license registration. The range is around 80 kilometers. You pay higher, you get better configurations like disc brake, ABS, and so on. China used to be the kingdom of bicycles. Now we're the kingdom of electric scooters. I recently saw short videos showing how popular these are becoming overseas. Would you consider opening a shop, selling them in your area?
So is China a developed country? Because I keep saying people on TikTok saying China is already a developed country, blah, blah, blah. Let me be clear. That's fake news. China is still a developing country. Recently, China's premier spoke at the UN General Assembly. He said that China will no longer seek new special and differential treatment in WTO negotiations. I think most of the people are based on this information, but that's a wrong understanding. For years, the US and some Western countries have been criticizing China is so developed. Why should it still get special treatment? Some even suggest that China is trying to give more benefits than other developing nations. Actually, this is mostly a political narrative. These countries want to separate China from other global South nations, make it harder for China to push initiatives like Belt and Road and slow down its influence in global affairs. I think people can understand this, right? China's premier statement means China will not compete with other developing nations for special treatments or special benefits, but China's identity as a developing country remains the same. Compared to other developing nations, China's economy is bigger and much more advanced. And as the world's second largest economy, it has the responsibility to act responsibly. So some people may ask, when will China become a developed country? According to China's long-term plans, unlike the US, the 90th Party Congress set a clear roadmap. By 2035, China aims to basically achieve modernization, and by mid-century, to build a strong, prosperous, and beautiful socialist modern country. So that's the plan. China will keep identifying as a developing country, not because it sounds good, because it reflects where the country really is. And maybe by 2035, we can reconsider this question. Until then, China is still developing. So talk to you in 2035.
Yeah, I think you said it in your program as well. China grow up. Well, I think we want to grow up. We don't want to be, dwarfed or poor, underdeveloped all the time. But it depends on how you define developing country, right? If you look at China's overall size, the overall size of the Chinese economy, yes, we are very big, the world's #1. But don't forget, we have 1.4 billion people. That is over 3 times the population of the United States. So if you divide the second largest overall economy in the world, basically, when it comes down to per capita GDP, we're, I think, less than 1/6 of that of the United States.
Some people say that China is a developed country, not a developing one. But that is not true. We are a developing country. We just show what a country looks like if there are no oligarchs and politicians wasting a large amount of national resources.